Nation, it's July. The first half of this year is officially over. It's done. Man, that actually came relatively quick. We've reviewed a lot of albums so far this year, and we've definitely talked about a lot. So, I guess a retrospective of the first half of the year is really something that needs to happen. Has it been a good year for metal, or has this been one that's just kind of been middling? Is the best still yet to come? Well, there have been a lot of great albums that have come out throughout the first half of the year. I have a list right here of 10, and I stopped myself at 10 specifically because I also plan to give you links to the reviews that I did, just in case you happen to miss them. However, there are some names that are on this list that you might find surprising, and others that are absent that you may find equally as shocking. For example, you're not going to find Arch Enemy on this list, but War Eternal was a decent disc. Neither are you going to find Anathema on there, but Distant Satellites, for what it was worth, was very good also. You're also not going to see Insomnium, even though I really enjoyed their new one, or you're not going to see, the Black Label Society or Alcé, even though those albums were both great. What we have here are 10 albums that I really felt were true definers of the first half of this year. And a lot of them are definers for one different reason or another. Whether they be just that good, or whether it's because of something that's happened so far in 2014, and this happens to be the best. These are the best so far of 2014, in no particular order, at least 10 of them. Because remember, this isn't the top 35 list. This is not the end of the year list. This is not the list that actually means the most. But this is instead 10 great albums from the first part of 2014 that you may have missed, and ones that you should definitely listen to. And like I said, this is in no particular order, though I am starting from earlier in the year. Now, one of the very first albums that I reviewed in 2014 was by a band named Hail Spirit Noir. It was an album called Oi Magoi, which was very, very strange. It was actually an album that I decided to sample and try just kind of based off of a whim, based off of something sounding kind of interesting. What I got actually was one of the most solid releases thus far for 2014. This is an avant-garde black metal. It's got just very, very, a whole lot of different faces to it band that just really released a solid piece of music. My review really is able to describe it a lot better than I can right now, but one thing that I can say is that if you're somebody who really doesn't like the convention all of that much, if you're somebody that likes your music to really blend various styles, either that or not really feel like it's pigeonholed into one section of music, then this is definitely a band for you, and this is definitely an album for you. This is something that, in spite of all of this disorder, it's something that remains very, cognizant whenever it comes to its flow. It's something that is very, very easy to sit through, and it has a nice mixture of lengthier tracks and tracks that aren't nearly as long that actually provides an excellent balance. This is a weird one. I definitely guarantee you it's going to be unlike most of the others on this list, but you should definitely check it out. Secondly is The Satanist by Behemoth, and this is on the list, even though it seems a bit obvious, principally because it's just that damn good. Whenever we heard that Behemoth was coming back after a couple of years of dormancy, and all of the various things that has kind of swirled around them in that time span, we didn't really know what to expect. We didn't know what was going to happen. But Behemoth were able to really silence all of those doubts whenever The Satanist was, unleashed upon us. This was just a fantastic, fantastic disc, one that definitely didn't fuck around and got straight to the point right from the get-go. It continued to show to us why Behemoth is consistently one of the best bands in metal today, and actually provided a little bit more to that legend by maybe surpassing some of, their best works. This modern era may actually discourage a lot of, fans of Behemoth all the way back from the 1990s who may feel that stuff is some of the best work, but this is a very, very qualifiable album. This is certainly one that's going to be very, very up on the tier. Not to mention, this is certainly one that's gotten a shitload of attention, and a lot of people have responded very positively toward, myself included. The review definitely proves that. Hammer of the Witch by Ringworm is next on the list, and this may seem a bit odd, but in the video, in the review that I did, I said that this could easily be, this style of music's Rust in Peace. There's just riffs galore, and it just really, really feels like it has that grandiose magnitude to it. Now, some have argued that there have been other albums that have really fulfilled that prophecy a little bit better than this one, but I disagree. And plus, this is a 2014 list. We're not talking about historically. In 2014, this definitely feels like the real, potential Rust in Peace album where the riffs really are able to just surpass anything that's happened thus far. And man, this is a hell of a beast of an album. From a band that, just a couple of changes have really provided them with just a shitload of momentum, not to mention a tremendous, tremendous amount of confidence. Something that definitely builds itself very well and lends itself very nicely to Hammer of the Witch. I definitely recommend this one. Triptychon's Milana Chasmata. This shouldn't be all of that much of a surprise. We wondered what Triptychon was going to be able to do with a follow-up album. Their first album was just so damn dark and wonderful. We just ate it up. We loved it. That we were wondering if it was possible for there to be a sophomore slump in the Triptychon camp. When in reality, no. This is something where they were able to take all of that energy, to take all of that darkness from the first album, and perpetuate it once again into the second. And do so very well. This is one where the execution is certainly one of the biggest positives, and the different blending of styles that you hear throughout this album really lends itself nicely to its overall composition. There are a lot of tracks that you're going to find yourself repeating over and over again, even if it's just for one part or section that lasts only about a minute. It's something that just transforms, a track that's already very good into superb, and that's what I can say about this one. This one may be high up on the list come year's end, so this is certainly not the last we're going to be talking about it. Killer Be Killed with their self-titled album is next up on this list. There was something that happened here in 2014 where we saw the evolution of a couple of different supergroups. Whether or not it were supergroups that already, mattered or were on the radar, such as Transatlantic releasing Kaleidoscope early in January, or Adrenaline Mob releasing Men of Honor, which was not that great. But then we had a couple of new ones, The Devil You Know was one that definitely got some attention. But this one kind of slid on by, and this is the one that I think had the most powerful tone behind it. This spanned musicians from a number of different genres, and they definitely were able to bring things together very nicely. But then again, what do you expect? You bring someone from Dillinger Escape Plan, from Mastodon, from Soulfly and Sepultura? Damn! And that's not even throwing in the Mars Volta. This is an album that really showcases fury, chaos, but also beauty all at the same time, and definitely has a great awareness to it. And that's the reason why out of the plethora of supergroups that have either, come to be or have released albums, this is one that I definitely feel is the cream of the crop. This is one that still continues to be a little bit ignored, which is kind of disconcerting because this album is really, really good. Definitely one that you should check out if you're thinking about something new to listen to today. The Serpent and the Spear from Agalloch is next up. This may seem obvious considering there's a lot of Agalloch worship that's taken place, but you can kind of understand once you listen to it. This is a band that's really just that good. They really have their, idea of metal down to such a science that it's just almost impossible to believe that these guys can release something that's all of that bad. This is an album that really, for me at least, really sounds the most resemblant of a follow-up to Ashes Against the Grain. It's just a fantastic, fantastic disc that blends some of the ideas that they've been able to really morph with their last couple of discs, and really combine it with some of the elements of their earliest works, such as Pale Folklore or The Mantle. The overall combined effort on this album really is what causes it to have its principal strength. And the review of this really was a little bit more detailed about this. However, this is an album also that's very, very difficult to kind of just let fade away into your collection. This is one that you continually find yourself returning to and listening to again and finding new little aspects about it that you tend to like. It's really the definition of a grower album, and it's one that really grows and blossoms into a really strong contender for Album of the Year. Swan's To Be Kind. Speaking of Album of the Years. Whew. This massive 2-disc set was heavily, heavily hyped prior to its release. And once it finally found its way into our earlobes, man oh man oh man. Swans is a band that ever since they've taken on this more experimentative approach and just kind of not given a fuck about convention, it's only benefited them and really shot them straight to the moon whenever it comes to the hearts of, metal fans and really in some cases music fans in general. Do you remember what happened with Death Heaven last year with just how powerful that album really came out of nowhere and became? Well, this album was one that we knew about and one that was kind of on our radar, but it was also one that took us completely by surprise. Even though the previous works that Swans have had in this era, this 2010s era, have been very similar in magnitude and scope, this is one that really just seemed to take all of that energy and focus it in a little album called To Be Kind. and man, the result is just absolutely haunting. This is a disc that really showcases all of the different sides of Swans in one way, shape, or form or another. Whether it's something that's lyrical or just the musical hauntings, the musical dirges that really take place on this disc, really combining a swath of styles. Swans just really showcased how you can make a varied album and have it really come together so beautifully that you never know. This may be the year of Swans whenever it comes to the top 35 list. Mastodon, Once More Round the Sun, is next. It's relatively recent, but it's one that definitely deserves to be up there. Principally because this album, whenever I originally first listened to it, seemed like a grower. Seemed like one that was really going to have to grow on me in order for me to really respect it whenever it compared to albums of the past. Well, I did that, and wow. Everything that you liked about The Hunter is there, but then again, everything you liked about the previous Mastodon versions is there as well. So this is something that really showcases the duality of their style and the evolution. This is not something where they're going all the way back to the Leviathan days and, principally speaking on, that style of songwriting. No, this is instead something that's showcasing a further growth, a further evolution. Something that every band really needs to have, but seldom few actually go out of their way to try to accomplish. Mastodon just continues to explore their sound, even though they've already cemented themselves as one of the best metal bands of the current era. So, whenever you have that kind of ambition behind you, even though you're already considered to be, high on the pantheon of current metal acts, that shows a lot of balls. Not to mention it also shows a lot of sense, because you know that you can always do something that pushes the envelope a little bit more. And Once More Round the Sun, once you listen to it, once more, and once more, really illuminates that beautifully. It showcases that this band's creativity is not something that's going to go away anytime soon. And it's something that, as they further expand themselves to new horizons, they're only going to continue to better themselves and really become stronger and more cohesive as a unit. It doesn't matter what your favorite Mastodon album was prior to Once More Round the Sun, you're going to find a little bit something about that album on Once More Round the Sun, and grow to love Once More Round the Sun just as much. I highly recommend this one. Allegiant or Allegiant, however you say it. I've had different comments about this. I've had different things stated about this. Elements of the Infinite, that's what matters. It matters the fact that Elements of the Infinite has captured the hearts and the minds of metal fans across the nation, and I myself am no different. I had to give this album high marks simply because this is a tactical assault on how to do music right and how to write music in a style correctly. It's something where, yeah, you have yourself something, a style, a subgenre, picked out. You have a sound picked out, and then it's just as easy as repeating it 10 times, right? Well, they decide to take this a little bit above and beyond the Call of Duty, blend in a whole bunch of other different things to subtly kind of inject little different deviations into their sound, and just derivatively make something that just seems like a hulking mass. And that a hulking mass is fantastic. They're able to use each and every moment of time that they have on each of these songs, including their 13-minute-long finale, to their advantage. They leave no time wasted, and because of that, this is one of the strongest albums that you're going to hear in 2014 thus far. And this is one that I highly recommend. If you can get your paws on it, do it. This is not something where you need to think about, your electric bill. This is something where this album will actually pay for itself in time. Finally, we have Esoteric Warfare from Mayhem, and this may seem really curious and kind of a, backwards-ass pick, considering many people might not feel that this is a very strong album. But that's the thing. I would disagree. This is an album that actually showcases all of the different things that Mayhem have been able to build toward ever since Ordo AKO. This is something where just the sheer, uneasiness, the dissonance, the strangeness of this album, the fact that it's able to really take you down these pathways that feel awkward and, really not very linear, really gives this album all of the weight that it needs to really be considered one of the best of 2014. The vocal style on here ranges anywhere from low growls to operatic vocals, which really showcases a dynamic range, and the talent level that's present is second to none. What I really love about this album is that it literally feels like you're taking some sort of psychedelic acid trip into all of the, negative recesses of your mind. It's like a bad trip, only it's a bad trip that you can't walk away from. And not because, you're being forced, there's no asshole with a trident behind you forcing you to move forward, but it's instead your own will, your own desire to see what the hell is going to happen next. This is an exercise in ambience, this is an exercise in just ridiculousness at times, but it's also an exercise in well-executed, very, very uneasy, dissonant music, and one that I certainly recommend that you check out. Now, I know that there are some albums that have been left unreviewed, perhaps from the past week or so, or perhaps from months ago. I stuck with ones that I reviewed, principally because those are the ones that I know the best, considering I took the time. Now, I know that there are other albums that you guys probably feel are some of the best of 2014. So help out the other members of the nation and anybody else that opts to check out this video, and post them down in the comments below. What are your personal top 10 picks of the first half of 2014? Post those in the comments. Let's have a discussion about how this year has gone, because so far, just by based around those 10 names that I just spoke, the 10 albums that we just talked about, I think this year's turning out pretty good. And whenever you consider what the second half really has to offer for us, what's coming, 2014 may go down in history as one hell of a great year in heavy metal music.